Hello, welcome to another edition of HUGS. I am your host, Antika Libby, the Trauma Transformer, and my mission is to witness millions of Christians surrender to God, His love and His mercy, by eliminating the distractions, pain, and heartache that reside in our bodies and our minds. So God can really transform our lives from stuck and struggle to confident and peaceful. And I am a missionary for God's work as an author and healer and teacher at fithappychristians.com with online and private and group programs, as well as here, where each week I link arms with experts, missionaries, and God's people who have witnessed God's hands in their own lives and are now weaving hope, love, and faith into the world. And this is really a new segment for us here on HUGS. This last year we've been really focusing on the mission of just being in hope and really sharing our life lessons and talking to one another. And this week starts an amazing process where we're going to dive deep this year into faith and building our faith with one another. So it is really awesome that right now we're just taking this shift with an amazing author and a very special guest and friend of mine, Kellie Frazier. Today, she's kicking off this for us and with us because she is authoring a book called God's Miracles. And she's such an inspiration through this in her work as a coach and an author. She absolutely loves people, and that's where she stands. That's where she roots into her work as an inspiring author and speaker who has the ability to engage others through their spirited passions. And she is the founder of Connecting LLC, a company that teaches entrepreneurs how to genuinely serve others and generate wealth in their business while doing so. So Kellie, thank you so much for kicking this off with me, and welcome to the new HUGS with our new format. As you can see now, we are a YouTube channel and we have our TV show.
That is awesome. Antika, you're doing such an amazing job at this. I am very, very happy and honored, truly, to be here on your first show. I think that's so cool.
Yay! So, Kellie, I know that you have some amazing stories because God has touched you. We've just talked a couple times about different ways that God has spoken with you, and I don't know what He has called to your heart to bring forth today, but I just would like to open the floor to you to just share what's on your heart, a story that came to mind, and just fill this room with hope.
Well, I appreciate that, Antika. There's something that really does stir my heart, and it's less about my stories and really a lot more about other people's stories. But I know that you've really got to tap into an audience by sharing who you are first. So I will start with a story about myself. As you said already, I do help entrepreneurs in business, and I definitely want to be able to provide a good, strengthening lesson in faith and hope and love, which is the title of my first book, Connecting Faith, Hope, and Love. And in that, I told stories about my own personal life, which I was raised in an abusive home, actually, and it was not something that I felt that I could look in the mirror and say, you know, I'm just this strong Christian individual, that I can just work through all of that. In fact, it was just the opposite. And many years had gone by when I felt ugly. I felt very unintelligent and just really not measuring up in life. And so my relationship with God was always strained because as you know, and as many people know, when you're raised in any kind of a home that is other than loving, not that it wasn't loving at some time, but you know, when you're raised in a home that is unloving, you truly don't have an image of God. You have no clue the power and the impact that God could possibly have in your life. So, child, you're raised with all these very, very warped thoughts, so far from God. And as you grow, you tend to learn on your own what that could look like. And it's very confusing. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to share one story when I was about 9 years old. And it's interesting because I only told my brother this just a couple months back, and he was so surprised. So at 9 years old, I was sitting in a group we called a catechism teacher because I was raised Catholic at that time, which, by the way, I have no religious denomination that I am affiliated with right now. My total relationship with God is strictly that, just relationship. So
Beautiful.
I apply that because it truly does come into a spiritual walk for me, not a religious, doctrine. So I'm sitting in this room with other, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old girls. And in the middle was a candle. And the teacher wanted each one of us to hold the candle and say a prayer or say something to God. And it was just a very awkward thing. And my grandmother had spent a lot of time with me telling me about God, telling me about God's love, reading the Bible to me, and really sharing her heart and her love about what faith, hope, and love was. So I was sitting there thinking about my grandmother and thinking about how happy I was that she was in my life. So everybody takes their turn, but when the candle came to me, it was interesting because I looked at the candle and all of a sudden I see the flame just go up higher and higher and higher. And all of a sudden it was like everything around me had disappeared. And all I could see was this flame, just this light. And I'm sitting there staring at it, and I remember speaking, and I remember words like, all I want to do is favors for you, God. I don't want to ask anything else from you. I just want to do for you. And the interesting thing about that experience was the next thing I remember was I was standing and my teacher had my shoulders and she's going, Kellie, do you realize what you just did? And I was like, no, I truly did not know what I just did. And she said, you just gave your heart to God. You completely surrendered your heart to God. And she was so happy, and I really didn't comprehend what she was talking about, to be quite honest. I was kind of fog, and I didn't really understand. So I remember going home, and I remember her words. You gave your heart to God. You gave your heart to God. But I guess I didn't really have to have those words to remind me of that, because over the next several months and years as they passed, I remember just feeling so close to God. And I would also remember my friends saying, oh, they'd be so excited. I just accepted God and I just accepted Christ in my heart and all these different things. And I'd be like, I don't remember feeling that total excitement like that. I just remember this total dedication, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That was my first encounter, if you will, with God. But there are so many stories. I believe that every single day of our life is a living, breathing miracle. I also believe that every single word that we breathe, whether it's positive or negative, is prayer. It is what we're saying in our life, and it is going to be an outcome. So depending on where you are with those thoughts, I recognized later in life, much later in life, that anything that you think will eventually come out of your mouth. And if you have a heart that's filled with pain, that too will eventually come out of your mouth. And so there are going to be patterns in your life that you have to start recognizing. And because of those patterns, you start to develop ways of nurturing yourself and allowing God to nurture you. Another area there.
Yeah, but it's beautiful because a lot of my work and yours too, and I know many people, it's really about um, surrendering that pain, the abuse, the bad habits that we created, the crippling habits that we continue, and loving ourselves anyway, and changing our thoughts, and really taking responsibility for our own thoughts and our own actions. And I've really found for myself that when, like, it's been years where I'm taking responsibility for my thoughts in certain settings, like when I'm praying or when I'm doing my asana practice, my yoga practice, or when I'm meditating, or when I'm just walking around and in my zone. And then it's a whole different ball game as soon as there's, a couple kids around and my husband and my family and friends, or I have something stirring up to be healed inside of me. And so really coming that place where we can surrender and say, okay, God, these are my thoughts. This is what I'm wrestling with. I'm willing to see it. Now will you just take it? The more that I found, okay, God, will you just take this as my prayer? the more my thoughts have been able to focus on him solely, on times where I was like, whoa, really? That's what I'm thinking right now? I can't believe it. How awesome. And also times where my words are finally coming to sound and be the thoughts of my heart.
Right.
That
Yeah.
has taken
Can I
years
share
to
something
catch up.
with you? I'd love to share something with you on what you said. You were talking about, having prayer time with God and asking God to take something. This is one thing that I think is going to really resonate with a lot of people because we all do this. And I know I find myself doing it too. Probably not so much now as what I used to. But here we go. We say, okay, God, here's all my pain, here's all my stuff, and I want you to take it from me, okay? So let's just pretend for a moment that we've taken off this ink and we shoved all of our pain and our problems inside this ink pen, okay? And then what we do, we go to hand that stuff to God, right? Okay, so here it is, God. I don't want it anymore. Take it from me. Take it from me. And so God goes to take it from you, and what's left? You're still holding on to some of it, right? So here's the pen cap. He's got all the stuff that you stuffed inside the pen, but you're still hanging on to something here. And what ends up happening with this is it starts to grow larger and larger and larger, and before you know it, you're back at the whole pen again, right? So a different method that I've learned in really being with God and meditating with God is to say, God, I know you can take this from me. And in the process of taking this from me, you're going to take this much and I'm going to hold this much because that's just human nature, right? So what I've decided to do now is say, God, I don't want this anymore. In fact, I'm going to surrender every bit of this stuff over to you and I'm going to lay it down and I'm going to let you do with it what you want. Therefore, my hands are now empty and ready to receive more. So that's a process. It is.
Yeah.
But it's definitely doable.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff. So you said that you love to share about other people and your new book, God's Miracles. And so why don't we just talk about that? Why don't you talk a little bit about how you've seen God's grace build your faith and work in other people's lives?
Yesterday was a great example. There are so many incredible people that have stepped forward to write in this book. And I think when this book first came to me, and please understand, I don't know how God speaks to you, Antika, but I know for me, and he speaks to everybody this way, it's just how open we are and how ready to receive we are. But he speaks to us in different ways. And so for me, it could be 3:30 in the morning, and I get this image in my mind, and what I see and what I saw several times with several other books is this image of a book cover. So God's Miracle book actually had, it looked like a lighthouse, but not exactly. Oh, I should turn my camera around so you can actually see my studio light. So it looks like a studio light, really, really bright, so that if you look into it, all you really see are the rays that come out, right? Kind of blinds you a little bit. So I saw that light, and then I saw the words God's Miracles on top, and I saw all these faces start to pop in, all these different people. A lot of them I didn't know who they were. Some of them I did know and I could recognize, and I said, I wonder what all this is about. And then just God puts this whole idea in my mind about all these people that are coming forward who need healing. And so all these faces that are coming, those are faces of people who need healing. As they're sharing their stories, the healing process is beginning or is actually transforming their lives as they're telling it. And so the story that has gone into this book is a representation of someone's healing and of someone's process of where they have finally recognized, oh my goodness, God loves me so much. This is just incredible, And it's been able to take them on this journey where they now have to kind of sort through some of those things that they didn't realize that they were holding on to. So the whole process has been so powerful. But yesterday, this is just an amazing thing. There's a woman who has been in business for quite some time, and she had decided that every time she turned around in business, somebody was publicly humiliating her. And it was so terribly destructive to her life that it was just creating paralysis, okay, in her personal life or business life. And as you can imagine, anybody who feels publicly humiliated, they begin to shut down. So, one question. I said, okay, tell me where you were as a little girl when you were first publicly humiliated. So instantly, she began to cry. Okay, it was when she was 6 years old. That's where the public humiliation began, right? And from there, it was consecutively over and over and over again. So what we do is we become comfortable with this pain. Now that might sound crazy, but we do. So once you become comfortable with that pain, you start to imagine life without it, and you really can't, because it now has become your best friend, your confidant, if you will. Because without the chaos in your life, you're going to look for it. Even subconsciously, you're going to look for it. And we don't understand all these things. We don't analyze every bit of our life to know all these things. But that's exactly what happened. So in her life and in her story, it was other people were doing this to her. Reality was she was creating this type of thing because of the choices that she was making from the comfort of her life and her upbringing. Just like for me, because of the abuse that I had as a child, I looked for men who were going to abuse me in relationships as a teenager. It just makes sense. But God, in His omnipotence and His mercy and His grace, He can come in and be able to change all those patterns. And you never have to worry about those things again. So being able to share what you're talking about with God's miracles, you start to recognize, hey, you know what? Maybe this is a correct thought. Maybe I am choosing to have this uncomfortable stuff in my life. Maybe I am looking for people who can publicly humiliate me because that's what I'm used to. That's what feels comfortable to me. It sounds so crazy, and I totally get that. But I'll tell you what, it is the absolute truth that that is what we do, which is why there are so many divorces in this country and every other country. Because what we're raised with and how we become comfortable, what seems normal to us, if we don't find that in our relationships, we're going to create it. And when we create it, it can be ugly, just downright ugly. And how do we expect our spouse to handle that? Our spouse is coming with his own junk, right?
Her own junk, yeah.
So it just makes sense. There's just so much that sits here, and we just go like this constantly. And if we could learn to recognize that we have patterns here and we have patterns here, and be able to release those patterns to God, like the pen, release those patterns, and learn the way that God loves us is so completely opposite from that, that we then would be able to connect like this, you know, and so powerful.
And that connection, from my experience and from hearing people, talk about their miracles and their healing for years, that connection when it happens is a total unity, but also the release of the fear, so you can have more unity with the people that you connect with, and you're actually, loving, and you can trust them that they're going to take care of you. So hopefully the woman is now walking in a new light, like that shining light in the book, and going, yes, I can now see and accept and you, because I can trust that you're going to see and accept me, and I no longer have to be publicly humiliated to be comfortable.
Right.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. I think that this whole walk and this series is really about forming that unity. The delusion that we're separate. We're one body, and we're brothers, and we're sisters, and we're human. And we're one. And not only with each other, but also with this beautiful planet that we live on, and everything. Without it, we wouldn't be here, So that whole unity and having faith in that God created this perfect.
There are 3 absolute steps, and I'll talk about those toward the end of our program here, but one of the steps that I had mentioned to her about taking is something that a friend of mine, Sean Taparan, she is a 6-time Emmy Award winner for just incredible newscasts and just different things that she's doing. She's on a project right now called Project Forgive, and has just been amazing around the world. The documentary that's coming out, it happened to be of two friends of hers that actually ended up in this horrific situation where one of the gentlemen actually ended up killing by accident the family of this other friend. So here's these three friends, right? You've got one friend over here who's a neighbor and another friend who, is a neighbor, and he ran over the family. I mean, it was just such a tragic thing. Um, there was some other things involved in there, but this accident that happened, it was just devastating. So she started on this project based on the fact that here she has these two friends who are friends as well, and now one has to forgive the other. How do you forgive something like that when your entire life has now completely changed? There is nothing the same anymore. Your wife is gone, your children are gone, and this person who was a friend of yours, you're now looking at him as someone who just wiped your entire life away. How do you forgive something like that? Project Forgive came out of that pain because he did say, I choose to forgive him. Okay? So one of the greatest things that anybody could ever do, and this is what I was coaching this woman on yesterday, the very first thing is to learn to forgive. Now God says that we forgive and forget, but human beings say, well, I can forgive, but I'm never going to forget, right? It doesn't happen that way, because truthfully, just like the pen, right? Okay, I'm going to forgive, but I'm not going to forget. So you're going to continue holding on to it, and eventually that entire pen is going to be right back there again. So I'm really glad I had this on hand. So, just being able to lock into the fact that if God were like that with us, if God said, I'm going to forgive, but I'm never going to forget, well, guess what? We would never forgiven. We would never be forgiven, nor would we be able to have forgiveness in our own heart and in our own lives, because we would not be able to forgive. And I know a lot of people would argue that, Antigua. A lot of people would say, no, that's not true. I know how to forgive, and I do it all the time. And, but that person next door, they just don't deserve it. Truthfully, we don't deserve it. We don't deserve it. But we do when it comes to God's love. Our behavior doesn't deserve it, but we as a person, as a heart, as a child of God, we do deserve it. Therefore, we have to be able to give it as well as receive it. You cannot be a generous giver without being a generous receiver. It just doesn't work that way. That is the laws of the universe, But most of us think that we have to keep giving and giving and giving and giving, even in forgiveness. And if I keep forgiving him and he keeps hurting me or she keeps hurting me, how in the world am I supposed to keep forgiving? I just can't do it anymore, right? Well, the truth of the matter is you have to forget too. And if you're not forgetting, you're just going to take that heart that you now forgave, and you're just going to keep chipping away and chipping away and chipping away at it. And again, that's where the relationships fall apart, because we don't want to forget.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, my absolute relationship is with Christ, and I'm very forthcoming with that. So he's just the prime example of God saying, okay, even Old Testament, God kind of saying, okay, I forgive, but I haven't forget. Here's your little punishment. I forgive, but I haven't forget. And he was like, okay, I forgive and I'll forget. And I'm going to send my son to show you this. And how to forgive and how to forget, and just pour that love and that faith and that hope and that relationship and that unity that he promises over and over and over again. And I think more than any time in history, now is where the more that we do embrace the pattern in ourselves of forgiving and letting it go, the more we really can create a place of peace and heaven on earth, and get rid of all the troubles that are happening globally right now, and all the political stuff and war stuff, and I mean, there's so much. And if we just forget yesterday, what they did 100 years ago, what they did 10,000 years ago, then we'd be able to move forward. And I think relationships would be able to look a lot different on not only a personal but a global scale. And I hope for that. I really hope for that in the world. So you've given so much fantastic information, but you hinted to three things, and we have about 5 minutes. And so one, forgiveness. Will you tell us about the other two?
Absolutely. Okay, I am all into challenges. As a business coach in particular, I am always challenging people to go the extra mile, just go one step further, one step further. So here's what you do. Once you have chosen to forgive, the next part of it is you've really got to spend that actual time doing just that. So to sit down and say, all right, who do I need to forgive? And you make a list of all those people that have hurt you over the years. And it could start back from when you were first born. For some people, it actually starts in the womb, believe it or not, when they know that they weren't wanted. And so they have to forgive their parents for that. So make a list of all those people that you feel you need to forgive, that you've held on to that bitterness and their issues, okay? Here's what I like to say. If I'm going to hold on to bitterness to someone, I'm going to have like this chain, this hook that's right into my shoulder, okay? And it hurts all the time. That chain that goes from my shoulder is going to go to whomever shoulder that I am bitter toward. And believe it or not, they could care less. They don't even think twice about the pain that they've caused me, right? So what's the big deal, Kelly? Why do I need to talk anything about this chain? Well, if that chain is attached to my shoulder and to their shoulder, it means we are still attached because I keep thinking about it. And every time I think about it, that chain gets longer and longer and longer. So to sit down and write out, okay, who am I still attached to? Who am I still chained to? Because this chain is it's killing my shoulder. I don't want this here anymore, okay? So it's time to snip the chain by writing these names down and learning to suffer what is called the emotional pain that they have caused me. Now, God doesn't necessarily talk about it in terms of that, but that is what it comes down to. We are suffering emotionally, and we feel paralyzed, and we can't move forward in life unless we let go of that emotional pain. So we say, all right, I am choosing to suffer the emotional pain that that person has caused me. And the moment you decide to do that and then say, God, here's that emotional pain. I'm not going to ask you to take it from me. I am choosing to lay that pain down and go. And you be their judge. I don't want to be their judge anymore. Okay? So the first step is to choose to forgive. The second step is to choose to remove the chain, write their names down of who you're hooked to, and choose to suffer the emotional pain. And then, of course, the third step would truly be to just surrender. Just surrender it. Lay it down. You no longer have to carry it. And what happens then? Woohoo!
Yeah. That's what I call the Joy Club. It walks everybody through that, and it's universal. Yes, it's beautiful. You can do that today. If you're listening to this, just go and grab a piece of paper, decide to forgive, grab a piece of paper, and then just offer it and choose to forget. And what I found for me, just to add a little bit more to this, Kelly, if I will, is sometimes the enemy comes in and goes, oh, but, and wants you to pick up that chain again. It's right there. Just pick it up again. And that's when I have to remind myself, catch that thought and say, oh no. Sometimes you have to commit a couple times. Oh no, I'm not picking up that chain. I let that go. God has it. He's taking care of it. And just remind myself of that, so I don't grapple with God and try to get that back. I just wanted to add that.
Every single day, I think that's awesome. Because really, I mean, you're just being real. You're being authentic because every single one of us deal with it. Now, I don't want anyone sitting here thinking, oh, wow, she's really got it together, okay? Yeah. It's not like that. Every single morning, the first thing I do before I do anything in my day, well, the first thing I do, well, you don't want to know the first thing you do, but the second thing I do is I just drink. I drink because I need to hydrate my body again. I need to wake up my brain, and hydration is one of the greatest ways to do that. While I'm stretching or maybe running or exercising, I am praising God, but I'm also saying, who is it that I might still need to forgive? why is it that I feel a little nervous today? What's happening today that might be causing this? And really think about what it is that where your mind is if you're not present with God. Guaranteed, if you're not present with God, there's something going on that you need to bring to God. So try very hard to think first thing in the morning, or even all throughout your day, which is, I do that as well, all throughout your day. If you get angry with somebody, or if you see somebody who's being, this was just the other day. I walk through the grocery store and I see this mom just whacking her little kid, and I was like, I hate seeing stuff like that. My old self would have wanted to just go, are you kidding me? I can't believe you're doing this, right? But this new self, once you understand God, you're able to just, you just have nothing but compassion because you know that that same thing was done to her. So all I wanted to do is put my arm around her and walk her in the back room and just have prayer with her. Honey, come on, just forgive whoever it is that you want to forgive in your life, because truly until you can get to that place, that's all the pain that's coming out on other people, and you don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't go over your time, but it just needed
I
to.
think we needed to. Yeah, there's no rules here. We're out of the box. Yeah, but Kellie, I just want to thank you. We are at 30 minutes, so I just want to respect everybody who's been listening and is listening to this and watching the show now. But I just want to thank you so much for gracing us with your stories and this hope and building a faith in these fantastic tools. Just awesome tools that people can take and we can all use today. And just shining your light and being who you are. And how can people get in contact with you?
That's a great question. Actually, I'm just now doing a new program, which is called Love Your Little Parts. And if you go to loveyourlittleparts.com, and it's exactly as you hear it, loveyourlittleparts.com with an S. That is a program that's helping people learn how to love themselves. And it's my partner and I, Kellie Frazier, and we just cannot wait for people to listen and to learn and to really release the things that they need to release because it's so powerful. So that would be a great place to start.
Thank you. It's been a joy to have you here.
Thank you.
So everybody, you know that this hug gets passed around the world, and we get to squeeze everybody by your share, by you posting this interview and this YouTube on your Facebook page and tweet about it. Put it on LinkedIn, wherever you want to go. Comment and leave us comments. We want to know what you think, how you feel about this shift in our focus and God's miracles, and really building up our faith and our hope in this year. And I want to hear from you. I always have my Embrace You course at fithappychristians.com, which really helps you embrace you and everything that you are. And we have the other programs, the Joy Club and Divine in 9 and Nourish You. And all of those things are really for you. So go ahead and jump on over there and get your free gift at fithappychristians.com. Share this hug with your world, and we will get it around the world. And thank you so much for being you.